Hi, welcome back to Behind the Lines. I'm Lynn Saternow from the Herald, Bob Greenburg, Cumulus radio stations in Mercer County. We put this show on every week and we hope you enjoy it. Bob, what a week we have. You know, last weekend, Farrell wins the state championship in football. Wilmington finishes runner-up for a second straight year. Basketball, wrestling kicks off over the weekend. Jim Wildman retires from Sharon. Man, everything just piled up.
Yeah, it will go down as one of the more memorable weeks of not just 2018, but for many, many a year. And of course, Farrell winning the state championship. It would be the headline of a week like this. Jim Wildman retiring. Are you kidding me? 31 years, legendary career. Wilmington battling Southern Columbia in the state championship game. And boy, for a long time we felt they could pull the upset. And then, of course, the winter season and their avalanche of games kicking off last Friday night. So, yeah, it's a busy time for all of us.
Yeah, you and Mark Slazak were still enjoying your vacation in Hershey that night on Friday. Well, we're back here killing ourselves trying to get in 25 games each night, you know, involving Mercer County kids.
And, you know, we'll go back to something I said on this program a couple weeks ago, that if there was one thing the PWA could do to make this transition better, would be finding a way to end the football season a week earlier. It's in my opinion, it's one of the worst things that we have to deal with. Not just us. It's not, you know, we can handle the media part of it, but from the kids' perspective, the athletes, the coaches, the supporters, the parents, everybody needs a break. And for the teams that win a state championship, it's kind of, you know, unfair. You know, I talked to Kai Wright on Monday night as an example. You know, he missed his first weekend of playoff high school basketball games in his final year, and now he's going to maybe play this weekend. But is it fair for a kid like him to have to miss games because they're playing football games? I don't know.
No, that's just wrong. And they could do it because, let's face it, they had teams getting byes in the state playoffs.
Yeah, there's no reason why the state can't figure out a way to shorten this season. And as you said, the easiest way would be just to shrink the playoffs 1 week. And I think after what we've seen with so many Mercy Rule games down the stretch, it'd be really a simple thing to do.
Yeah. Let's hope they take our advice. They never have in the past. So
that's not happening.
Let's see how that goes. Yeah, we had hoped to get Farrell coach Jared Samuels here today, but he's busy with college coaches coming to Farrell to recruit kids. That's no surprise there, huh, Bob?
Oh, yeah. They have a bunch of kids that are being recruited. Of course, Kai Wright's already committed to Pitt. Christian Lewis is committed to Albany. They haven't signed yet, so it's still verbal commitments, so nothing official on paper. The big story Monday, Kobe Hilton told us that he was planning on going to the University of Akron, but they had fired their entire coaching staff recently and notified him. So now he has opened up back to his recruitment again. So Kobe Hilton being looked at by a lot of schools. And then you have Jordan Townsend and Tamir Green, and the list goes on, where a lot of these players are getting looked at. And that's really the benefit of playing a long season and getting to Hershey is, you know, a lot of kids, maybe not the ones that are the stars, are getting notices by coaches and will maybe get into college.
Yeah, and Farrell, let's face it, it's one of the most dominant teams we've ever seen here in Mercer County, at least for their class. You know, they crushed Lackawanna Trail 55-20 in a state championship game, and it could have been worse.
Well, there's no question that, and it could be debated now till the end of time where Farrell, this team ranks in Mercer County history. And I just know that this team this year was as dominant a team as I've ever covered in my 32 years. And from start to finish, their only hiccup was in week 2 when they were trailing to Wilmington 12-0, but then came back and won that game by 12. Besides that, there was no road bumps, no potholes on the road to Hershey for Farrell. Dominating every team, scoring more points than any team ever in Mercer County history. And it says, you know, the results speak for themselves, Lynn.
Yeah.
15-0, state champs, never happened before. I mean, you can't argue that.
And that's why there's all these people looking at the Farrell kids. Now, that state championship game, Christian Lewis, 5 touchdowns, 249 yards. What a performance.
What a performance. And it will go down in the history banks as one of the greatest performances in the history of the state championship game. And
second, I think, in his class.
Second in his class. What's funny was there was the discussion that they told us Monday night that before the game, there was some discussion with some of the offensive linemen, and they had told Christian that maybe 5 touchdowns today might work for you,
yeah.
Christian. So the offensive line kind of predicted it, and Christian Lewis goes out with their help to do that in front of a state audience.
You know, and after the game, you know, he was so well-spoken. Great young man. He credited his line. Kobe Hilton, Gary Satterwhite III, Deshaun Sims, Gary Hobson, and Melvin Hobson. You know, that line was what really made that team go.
And I think one of the keys this year for Farrell, in addition to all their great athletes, is this offensive line staying healthy all year. And that was one thing that Coach Samuels really strived to do. He took, I think, Deshaun Sims off of special teams this year, who was on it last year specifically, so he wouldn't be in jeopardy of maybe getting hurt down the road. So I think the offensive line, no question, deserves a ton of credit, as big and physical and as dominant a line as we've seen.
I think they had a pretty good coach, too, with Rob Trudeau.
Rob Trudeau, no question, knows how to block people.
Yeah, former Syracuse University star and all academic in that conference, too. He's a super kid. Had a tryout with the NFL. Great kid.
No question, a
good
great
role
kid.
model.
And you know, you see a kid like Robert Trudeau back helping the next generation out, and Robert's still a young guy. Says a lot about the program and the respect they have for Jared Samuels and what Farrell does up there.
Yeah, we had an interview with Jared after the game. Let's hear what he had to say.
Championship trophy. Coach, congratulations. A dream come true here today.
Definitely a dream come true, Bob. We was here 3 years ago. They handed me this trophy, and I had it for like 5 seconds, and I handed it off to our seniors. I didn't want to touch it because it wasn't gold. You know, my mother, state championship. She's state champion. My father, state champion. My Uncle Bobby, Uncle Danny, state champion. Lisa Stewart, state champion. I can finally be in the same class and competition as them. They were state champions also.
Coach, talk about the beginning of the game, a little bit of a sluggish start.
Yeah, they came out and they're a tough team. You know, we knew it was going to be scrappy, and we knew they had something up their sleeve. Came out throwing the ball, caught us off guard, spread us out. But again, Coach Stewart, Coach Newell, Coach Simmons made the adjustment, and our D-line played strong, and the back end played strong also.
Coach, talk about the historical perspective, Farrell winning the first undefeated state championship.
Hasn't hit me yet, but I told him before, you know, 3 weeks ago, you can make excuses, you can complain, or you can make history. We had 3 games in 18 days. You know, OSHA had the bye week, and we knew getting through them, we was going to win a state championship.
And you put the ball in your hands of number 1 and number 2.
Absolutely, those guys got us here, so you got to ride the guys that got you here. But up front, our guys did the job. I told you back in the summertime, we was going to win a state championship unless our big guys up front did the job. And Heart and Soul, our offensive line, did the job for us. I'm so proud of them.
And you had to be very proud getting Tamir Green back on the field today, and he had a great game as well.
Yes, he did. We knew to win a state championship and start their offense, we had to have Tamir Green. He's been the anchor of our defense the whole entire season, and we're so proud of him.
Coach, I think they want the trophy off. You're going to give it up? Kobe, help me. Kobe, go ahead.
What about your charismatic senior class?
Well, they're all managers. So they saw me cry so many times at Western Finals. They saw me disappointed. They feel my pulse. It's hard to have a team feel your pulse. They can tell when I'm emotionally down. They tell when I'm having a good day or having a bad day because they've been around me so long. They're family. And when they're family, they feel what you feel. So for them to get behind me, my mother passed away, they all came to the funeral and told me from that point on, Coach, we won the state championship. And that's why my heart is so heavy because of these guys. I'm going to miss them so much.
Coach, you really haven't had many road bumps on the road to Hershey, maybe the first half of the Wilmington game, but
yes.
As smooth as anybody could have imagined.
It was definitely smooth. We told our guys also this beginning of the season. We watched Steel Valley a few years back. They won the state championship undefeated, and they mercy ruled everybody. We didn't quite get there. We came up 2 games short of mercy rule, but that was our goal. And you know me, I hate close games. So these blowouts, I love them. So I feel comfortable doing it, and our guys really, again, what a total team effort. Great coaching staff. I love them so much.
And Coach, in a day where it's easy to be distracted with social media, this team never lost the focus, did it?
No, they haven't bought. I told them guys all the time, guys, please, just buy into the coaching. Buy into the coaching and you'll be state champs. And they bought in back in January. We had a knockdown, drag-out meeting with our coaches last Western Final, and it was very emotional and very heated. We had to find a way to get these guys over the hump, and we found a way to get them over the hump, and I'm so proud of them because they bought in. When a team buys into the coaches and they're talented, it's a double bonus. You can have talented teams, but to be coached up and to be coached hard, we coach them very hard at Farrell, and they really come through for us.
Is there room in that trophy case? For one more?
Well, for a few days, maybe a few weeks, I'm hanging on to it. I'm going on vacation, though, for sure.
Jared Samuels, congratulations.
Thank you so much. God bless. It's for you, Mama. For you.
Talk about your legacy.
Yeah, Jared had an emotional time there with his mother, you know, passing away this year, and the team dedicated it to him. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, it's no question a very emotional time. And you think about all the emotions that Jared Samuels had to go through with the passing of his mother, his biggest fan, and then dealing with some of the stuff during the season, you know, never beating a WPIL team, kind of having that monkey on his back when it comes to not having tons of success in the Western Championship game. A lot of times they've lost in those games, a lot of tears and a lot of crying, but they get over that hurdle. Then they go back to Hershey, a place where they got mercy ruled the last time when that was on their mind. They got shut out and didn't score when they played at Hershey back in 2015, and boy, did they make up for that on Thursday.
They had that revenge on their mind, and they came back and took it out on Lackawanna Trail, and it wasn't their fault.
and what was good to see was the fact that, you know, not good to see, but you know, Farrell fell behind in the game. Little jitters, I think, early in that game.
Yeah, but you know it was classic. That whole Wilmington team was there rooting them on. They came down early just to see Farrell play and root for him.
That was one of the cooler things that we've seen, and not that it's not happened before, but for Wilmington to specifically go out of their way to change their schedule to get to Hershey to root for Farrell. And I know the players and the coach and the Farrell fans and supporters were very appreciative of seeing Wilmington in the stands.
And speaking of Wilmington, what a great run. You know, second straight year they lost to Southern Columbia, which is certainly no disgrace. I mean, that team is one of the best I've ever seen. That would have been a heck of a game with Farrell if they'd have played him. That would have been interesting. Brandon Fillion, tremendous coaching job for that final game. I mean, that whole first half, everything went perfect. You know, they have a 14-7 lead, and then one of the worst calls I've ever seen in football changes that momentum.
Yeah, no question. First off, it was an incredible year for Wilmington. Another team that had high aspirations. They were returning state runner-ups from a year ago and played Farrell early on. That was a game they didn't have to play, and there's no question that game went a long way to helping Wilmington become a better team. And then just getting better and better, avoiding the upset in the state playoffs versus Chestnut Ridge, and then dominating in the Western Final like we've never seen before. And then going to Hershey and really, you know, for half that game, they were the better team. And, you know, didn't end the way they wanted it to end, but you got to give Wilmington credit. Coach Fillion's game plan was spectacular and almost pulled off one of the greatest upsets ever. Yeah,
at halftime with about 10 seconds to go, they run a play and they call it a touchdown, but the guy's down 1 or 2 yards short of the goal. And video showed it, you know, still frame showed it, and I don't know, Lynn, and you know, I don't know what will happen from this, but you have to believe maybe the PWA would consider using replay for a state championship game. You know, they know they're going to have video there. They do use it now in state championship basketball games if there's a clock issue on a final shot. So they've opened the door for allowing replays in basketball. I would love to see them use that maybe for scoring plays in a state championship game, because if Wilmington would have lost on that play, it would have been something that would have been talked about for years to come. Yeah, there's no doubt. But, you know, it hurt. A momentum shift. Instead of going into the half at 14-7 lead and getting the ball in the second half to start, I think it took a little bit out of them. Well, think about Southern Columbia. They never trailed at halftime. Right. And so you have the emotions of how they would have handled that adversity for the first time. And then, you know, we saw, and it was clear to me, after that play occurred and the half ended, Wilmington walked off the field. Southern Columbia ran off the field. So there was such an emotional change in that final second and that final call. And not saying it was a difference in the game, but no question it played a factor. Yeah, and they're going to lose some great players moving on, you know. Cam Merritt, Rob Pontius, Colton Richards. Here's a 289 guy playing middle linebacker, you know, and he's quick. Yeah, he's a unique athlete. There's no question about it. And what's unique about him is you think, okay, he's a great football player, but go watch him play basketball. Yeah. It's you watch him, you think this guy can't be any good. He is an outstanding basketball player at his size. He, along with the offensive line with Jacob Yeoman and Jordan Gray and Alex Ramirez and Jimmy Reed, Noah Hunt, these guys have really set the stamp on this program. Wilmington's had a great program, but 3 District 10 titles in a row, 2 state final appearances. That's never happened before. So very great group, and we congratulate them. Yeah, super year. There's an interview with Brandon Fillion after the game. Let's listen in.
Said, hey, to be tied with this team at the half, 14-14, I couldn't be more proud of our guys. I know there's no moral victories in sports, but something right now talking to you as a head coach who couldn't be more proud of the buy-in, the belief in the way that these kids perform through practice all week and in the game today. I'm awfully proud of our guys.
Obviously the tone was set early on. That first try, they went down the field and your defense forced a big turnover. Kind of felt like from that point on you guys had a chance.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. I thought it was a huge momentum swing there early on in the ball game. That created the buzz, and then we were able to shorten the game in the first half. We were able to move the ball, sustain drives. I think we only had 2 first-half drives. We scored on both of them. So that was the game plan. We knew we had to move the ball, and the first half really, couldn't have played out a whole lot better.
Except for the final play of the first half, a controversial play that you're talking about all over. What did you see, and what did you tell the ref?
Well, I felt very strongly that he was down on the 1-yard line. It seemed like that, looking at that play, it seemed to me that he was definitely short. I expressed that to the officials, but, it's hard to, I'm not going to win that battle too often. That's the way they saw it. So I told the boys at halftime, that play's over. We've got to move on and get ready for the second half.
What changed in the second half? Obviously, they adjusted, and it made it tougher for you guys.
Yeah, they made some good adjustments. There's no doubt. We had some mistakes, some miscues there that obviously hurt. When you're playing a team like that, you've got to win the turnover battle. You've got to limit the mistakes, and we were able to do that, in the first half, but weren't quite as successful with it in the second half.
15 seniors playing their final game. You can't be any more prouder, I bet.
No, I couldn't ask for a better group of seniors. First year as head coach, there's not a group of 15 guys I would have rather had go through this amazing ride with me than those 15.
Lastly, Coach, I got a message from your father-in-law. He told me to tell you that he loves you very much.
I love him too, and they've got the most precious thing to me, my daughter, right now. So thanks for keeping her, and I'm excited to get on that bus and get back home to her.
Coach, congratulations on a wonderful first year.
Thanks so much, Bob. Appreciate all the great coverage this year. Thanks a lot.
That's a well-spoken young man. For as young as he is as a first-year head coach, he always says the right things.
It was funny because getting to meet some of the media down there at Hershey in the hospitality room, that one of the media types said to me, "Boy, that Coach Fillion's really well-spoken. Does a great job." I said, "Well, he's done play-by-play announcing for my station for the last 3 or 4 years." So yeah, he's an announcer. That was one of his first loves was announcing, and then when he got the job here as the head coach, the announcing probably will slip away, but no question Brandon Fillion's got very bright days ahead of him.
Yeah, and I think, I don't know if he'll coach as many years as Terry Farrell did, but I think, phenomenal career ahead.
Of course, one of the interesting sidelights of the game was that his father-in-law, of course, was Paul Piccarelli, and I was looking to try to get Paul Piccarelli on our halftime show, and I talked to Brendan before the game, and the entire Fillion family came down to Hershey. So it was Paul and Karen. His wife Karen had to babysit Braylon, the baby. So unfortunately, Paul had to stay back with his wife Karen to babysit Coach Fillion's daughter, and was not able to come in person. But I know he was very supportive and loved Brendan Fillion and the way they played.
And I don't think he minded, because anytime you get to be with your grandkids, that's always something special, especially when he's coaching all year and he doesn't have much chance to do that.
No question about that.
Yeah. Besides football, well, speaking of football again, you mentioned something on Twitter the other day, and it was the same with me. I have never submitted that many names for All-State as I did this year. We had so many caliber kids playing; it's unbelievable.
And I think at that point, there's not much else we can do. I mean, you look at it. You have 3 teams in the Western Finals, a state championship team, a state runner-up team, and those teams have to have 4 or 5 players. I mean, they're the best teams in the state. And then we have other great teams like Grove City and West Middlesex. Sharpsville, teams like that had a lot of great players as well. So I would be surprised if we don't have maybe the largest group of all-state players ever out of our county.
I would hope so. Unfortunately, some of these guys that vote will only pick so many from each team, to nominate when they vote. So it's going to be hard to tell.
And that's the one negative. I mean, we do a lot of games. I see a lot of teams, but we don't see everybody. So when we get the ballots, we're hoping that the nominations have all the pertinent information, and we can hopefully do the best job of voting for the best candidates here in Pennsylvania.
Well, just like last year, Christian Lewis was disappointed that he didn't make the All-State team, but they picked several Farrell kids, and some guys, when they vote, they'll cut it down. Okay, I picked four Farrell kids. I can't pick another one. Just that's the way they are. And that's the way they think.
And
unfortunately.
I think that's a flaw in the system at this point. I mean, I look at that Southern Columbia team and the Farrell team particularly. they probably have 6 or 7 kids that were at the best in their positions that I saw all year. So they need to be rewarded for that and not to be taken off the list just because they're on a great team.
And the crazy thing is, I made a joke that maybe they should have just given them next year's trophy too, because Southern Columbia has a lot of kids back.
It's an incredible program, and I talked to Coach Roth before the game, and actually we talked privately, and I had joked with him. I said there was a time where you weren't able to win state championship games. I said, you remember the days? He says, I remember. They lost to Farrell back-to-back years.
Right.
They had actually lost 5 state championship games in a row, and he laughed and said, people in my community wanted me to change things. He goes, I get the 5 state titles in a row, and they want me to change what we do. And they obviously did not. They just got better, and now they're the winningest program in the history of the state.
9 state titles. That's pretty solid.
Pretty impressive.
Yeah. Yeah, as we talked, basketball and wrestling kicked off this weekend with a lot of games. Grove City, both boys and girls teams won in the Kaiser Classic. And your buddy, Chris Birch, who also does announcing for you, he coaches the girls team, and they had a great showing. They beat Greenville in the finals. You know, it's a very good game, but those are 2 very good teams. I expect a lot out of them this year, both those teams.
Yeah, and I think, you know, the story, I think there was with the Grove City boys coach, Chris Qualick, his debut, leaving Sharpsville and taking over the Grove City program, you know, going up a step or 2 in class when it comes to the classifications. And there'll be some pressure on Coach Qualick going to Grove City, where they've had a lot of success over the years, but a great start for him so far. I know they played Meadville coming up on Friday night. That'll be a big challenge. They played Sharpsville last night, which would have been an interesting game as well to see how that played out. But Chris Qualick's a young coach that's definitely rising, and I think Grove City will be one of those top teams this year in District 10.
Yeah, and there's no doubt about it. I think both boys and girls will be among the top. Greenville girls, I went the other night and I watched them play Meadville. They crushed Meadville with 67-21. You know, Meadville's a pretty big school.
And Greenville's got a lot of players back from last year.
Yes, they do.
And they had, you know, kind of a breakout year last year. So no question, they will be one of those teams we'll be watching all season long.
Yeah, I got to see my granddaughter play. She hadn't played in 2 years, and she's back on the team as a senior. And she plays like me, a wrestler on the basketball floor. But you need that once in a while. She adds a lot of that.
That's good for her.
Yeah. How about Milliam Majestra over the weekend for Kennedy Catholic girls? She scored 80 points in 2 games.
Yeah, Malia has been a absolute star since the day we saw her play for the first time. And, you know, Kennedy's team doesn't have as many players they've had in the past, maybe not as deep as they've been in the past, which really leads Coach Justin Magestro to lean on his daughter Malia. If they're going to win a lot of games this year, they're going to need a lot of scoring out of her. And she's off to a start that we have not seen of very often. 80 points in 2 games is almost unheard of.
And the most impressive thing was she scored 39 in the first game against Mars, even though they lost, which was the state champion last year in 5A. And they still have a lot of kids back.
A lot of kids back. So it'll be fun to track her. She's only a junior, and you know, if she stays at this incredible pace, she has a really good chance to go very high in the all-time scoring list. Still a long way to go, but she's going to be getting to 1,000 here probably in the next couple weeks.
Yeah, and this is going to be a great year for basketball. I know you're trying to still line up your schedule, coming right off football like we do. You know, it's tough. But
yeah, it's going to be a great year. I mean, you look at, I think another big win over the weekend was West Middlesex beating Sharon in the Sharon tip-off, the Rick Fragel Classic. You know, Middlesex defending District 10 champs, return a lot of their key players. Ricky Ladovich transferred over from Sharpsville, and you know, almost the missing piece there. And Chad Miles, a 300-win coach. I think Middlesex could be one of those teams who made a long run last year, could be maybe even better this year.
Yeah, the Middlesex girls aren't too bad.
Not bad either.
Yeah. What, 3-time District 10 champs?
3-time, and they got McKenna White back, who's a big-time volleyball player, big-time basketball player, and I don't know how you could stop her. She's just a great athlete on the boards and scoring. She will be one of the top players, no question, in Pennsylvania this year.
And wrestling, we're going to have a good run again with a lot of local kids that are really good. Reynolds, they opened up over in the Ironman tournament at Walsh Jesuit, the #1 tournament in the country. I mean, they placed 21st out of 89 teams. People say, well, Reynolds, they're so good. How are they only 21st? These teams are from all over the country, big schools. I mean, impressive. Gary Steen took 3rd at 106 pounds. He's a defending state champ in Pennsylvania, which was a great showing.
And I think it's always, one thing I've always been impressed with Reynolds, you know, back to Neil Lyman and Brian Hills and now Casey Taylor, is that they've never shied away from these top-notch tournaments. They were never worried about undefeated wrestlers. They wanted the wrestlers to be prepared for the tournaments, and their history and resume speaks for itself.
Yeah, they are. I can't remember the last undefeated wrestler they had because they wrestle in so many great tournaments.
So many great tournaments. And Gary Steen loses a match early in the year, but he's improved himself by wrestling some of the top kids in the country in that tournament.
Yeah, no doubt. Jim Wildman steps down to Sharon. We're going to miss him. He's one guy that always had a lot of great quotes. I think he must have thought about it ahead of time, when he came up with those words. But he's quick.
Oh, no question. And you think about Jim Wildman, and I think about him all the years I've covered him. I think I made the comment on Monday night on the talk show that Jim was probably a guest on our talk show more than any other coach over all these years because they're winning so many games, winning so many district championships. We always have the coaches on, and Jim's one of those guys where back when he came in the first time, Sharon program, and you well remember, was at their lowest of lows, and it took them back to a state of a program that most schools wanted to emulate here in Mercer County and throughout the state.
Yeah, there's no doubt. Of course, they played in the MAC at the WPIL, which was really tough. But when he started out, the first year they won 1 game, second year they won no games. He said they broke his windows, they put for sale signs in his yard, his kids got harassed in school. They were only like 8 or 9 years old. It was tough for him in the early days.
And Jim's one of those guys where you either love him or hate him. I think that's what it was. I think it's pretty fair to say. He had a personality on the field with the officials, would challenge them. He was not shy when it comes to challenging officials, challenging the media. I went a whole year not talking to Jim Wildman. He wouldn't talk to me, and it was a funny story because, and I don't remember what it was all about, but I would go to every game, go down to the field before the game, say, "Coach, you want to talk?" "Nope, not going to talk to you, Bob." And then time went on, and we finally made up, and we went on and worked professionally together for many years to come. So that's just part of the job. You well know is you deal with something like that, and sometimes you get you cross paths, but that's part of the job when you're doing media or you're a coach.
I've had that with several coaches, which is understandable.
Well, that's true.
My personality.
But yeah, Jim's think about some of the great players through that program.
Oh, geez.
He coached guys like Michael Archie and Marlon Jackson and Mike Schneider and Terrence Phillips. Tony Reardon. It's so many great players that have gone through that program. Andrew Tomko recently.
Jim Hubitz.
Went to LSU. The list goes on and on. Carmone Parchman. I don't know if there's a program that has many over that stretch, as many great athletes and players. Sharon, once known as the running capital of Mercer County. So many great running backs. Now they have the greatest quarterbacks in Mercer County. So they've changed their system to fit their athletes. And it's a sad day, Mercer County. With Terry Farrell retiring last year and Jim Wildman this year, it's an end of an era here in Mercer County.
Yeah, and Bob and I had a little discussion on Twitter last night about who's the winningest coach in Mercer County. He says it's Terry Farrell because, what's your reasoning?
Because Wilmington School District is partly located in Mercer County. So that's my theory and my philosophy is that because their school district and some of their athletes and maybe even coaches live in Mercer County, that I wouldn't exclude them from my Mercer County list.
I think there's only like 10 houses. I don't know for sure.
Well, there is a bigger area than that.
No, the reason we do not in the Herald recognize that, just like many of the other organizations that affiliated with Mercer County don't. Mercer County Hall of Fame, in which we're on the board, we do not induct Mercer kids from Wilmington or coaches from Wilmington. Mercer County VOTEC, Career Center, includes all the schools in Mercer County, not Wilmington. Also, the Intermediate 4, Unit 4, which is from Pennsylvania, includes 3 counties, Butler, Lawrence, and Mercer. Wilmington is only listed in Lawrence County. And so we pick ours as compared to what other people do.
And I'll go
you people out there can decide for yourselves too,
which
way you want to go. And it doesn't matter, they're both great coaches.
No, and it doesn't, right. The records are the records, but Wilmington, they vote inside Mercer County. There's a precinct or 2 inside Mercer County. So they actually have Mercer County residents that vote for Wilmington School Board. The Wilmington baseball field is actually located inside Mercer County. So you start looking at the geographic. It's an unusual situation, and no matter how you look at it, Varelli and Wildman, wherever you place them on the all-time list, they're 2 of the greatest, the 2 winningest coaches in the history of our area, and that's basically the bottom line there.
But I think, just like Jim said in his story too, and Terry says the same thing, their records aren't what counts. It's where their kids are today. you know, what they've gone on to successes in life. And I think that's what every good coach does, just like Brandon Fillion talked about that, how they prepare kids for life rather than just for winning football games.
And I think one thing that I always look at it, and when I cover the teams, is the sign of a great program and a coach that is really respected is, do their former players come back to help out? And you look at the Farrells and the Sharons and the Sharpsvilles, these programs in Mercer County and the Wilmingtons that have so many former players that are now coaches on those staffs, and it just says a lot about the respect they have for that program and that coach. And I think, you know, Jim Wildman and Terry Farrell are two of them that are as respected from their community and their football world as anybody else.
Right, there's no doubt about it. You know, we're blessed in Mercer County and Wilmington to have great coaches. So, you know, the kids really have a great opportunity to play for these coaches. That's what's important.
And I think, you know, why has Mercer County been so great? You know, I talked to some of the coaches and media up in Erie area, and you look at our history over the last 25 years. You know, you have Lou Falcone and Bob Stone and Frank Amato, and you have Jeff Bell and Paul Piccarelli and Jim Wildman. Our coaches are as good and as loyal and as talented as any group anywhere, and our athletes are great, but our coaches are, I think, the main reason why our kids in football have been so successful.
No doubt. In District 10, our teams dominate in our divisions. So we need to give a shout out to Cathedral Prep too for winning another state championship in 4A. You know, that was something special.
First time ever District 10 had 2 state champions in the same year.
Yeah. And you know what else too? I mean, we've always called it the Western Finals, even though the state doesn't recognize it anymore. They call it semifinals. So one of our Western teams won in the 6A too, St. Joseph, Philadelphia, because they moved Philadelphia into our western side of the state.
Yes.
How crazy is that?
And that's the problem in 6A is there's only a handful of 6A teams out here in the West. But realistically, in single A, double A, and triple A, the 3 classes that we have, teams that we cover in, are still traditionally West versus East. But the higher classes, and I think 4, 5, and 6 particularly, have Eastern teams that will cross over. So it's crazy. I still like the Western Finals. I know a lot of the schools do because it's still a big deal to get from, you know, the semis to Hershey. That's the big accomplishment. So we still look at it as the Western Championship.
But the state saves money because they don't give them a trophy anymore. You know, they used to give them a Western Regional trophy.
Yeah, well, that's another story for another day.
Yeah, but they do give a second place trophy at state, so that makes up for it.
Yeah, they do that. And there were some rumors, and I don't know if it's true or not, that some of the media were talking that, and I'm hoping that this Hershey Park Stadium, or they're planning on a renovation here in the near future, might be adding a field house, which could eventually land, instead of having games on 3 days, maybe on 2 days. And that's kind of one of my big beefs about Hershey, is that they should have 2 triple headers, but they can't do it now because the locker room space is not big enough. But that might be a change in the near future we can look at.
That would be great.
Yeah, it would be great.
Nobody should have to play on Thursday. That's too much. Kids getting out of school. You know, these kids are supposed to be going to school. Oh, I got a phone call. We better go. Hey, thanks everybody for joining us this weekend. See you next week.